Welcome to today's forum titled The Evolution of Education-Based Athletics. We're diving into the evolution of high school athletics over the past 20 years, a journey marked by groundbreaking changes, rising challenges, and incredible opportunities. From advancements in technology to the growing need for strategic planning, we'll explore how athletic directors are shaping the future of sports programs while navigating increased expectations from parents, students, and communities. We are going to spark some passionate conversations and talk about some innovative strategies as we discuss what it takes to lead this ever-changing landscape. Be ready and stay tuned for this one. Let's just start off today. We'll go around and just introduce everybody. Uh, we'll start with you, Mr. Nance, and then we'll go on. Just introduce yourself, where you're at, and how long you've been in athletic administration.
Thank you, Scott. I'm Daryl Nance, Director of Athletics for Greenville County Schools in Greenville, South Carolina. And this is my 10th year in this job after 23 years in building as a building athletic director. So 39 overall in education, 33 in athletic administration.
All right, Mr. Newberry.
Don Newberry, Schroeder High School. We're here at Cincinnati Public Schools. I've been at Schroeder for 6 years, athletic administration for about 16 years now. And I am ready to have this conversation. This is going to be really interesting. So can't wait to hear what the minds say here.
That's right. Mr. Graviette.
Jeff Gravitt, Cape Notre Dame, or Notre Dame High School in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. We're a private school. I've been coaching here for 30 years and education here for 27. And this is my 8th year as athletic director. I coach baseball and softball for 27 years. Just been a mainstay. We're a school of about 500 kids, private school, and it's in the middle of the world.
Well, while he's waiting, I can introduce myself. I'm Brian Peterson. I've spent 20 years in education, 15 in athletic administration. Snuck out after I got to 20. I still coach track. I've coached track now. This will be my 22nd year. We're ramping up for that. I had an off-season practice this morning, actually, and snuck out. And I actually work with ADs now for a private software company, but I still heavily involved. I teach evaluative classes to ADs every year in the state of Iowa. And I teach a couple different coaching classes here as well. Just have a real passion for what we've done in this space, and really looking forward to hearing a wide variety of opinions here. So I'm really excited to hear that.
Okay, Dr. LaPointe.
Hello, I'm Dr. Danielle LaPointe. Based out of Florida right now. I was in teacher, coach, AD for 15 years in Florida, and I loved it. But I'm really passionate about AD efficiency and how ADs can work smarter every day to do a better job so they can spend more time with their coaches and their students. There's a huge passion of mine, and I feel like that's what I get to do on a daily basis now. So really like to narrow down and zoom in on what exactly can we do to help exactly what we're talking about today, right? Things have changed. So how can we change as ADs to make our everyday life easier and more efficient for our coaches and our students?
Before we dive into today's episode, let's take a moment to recognize our presenting sponsor, Bound. At Bound, we're dedicated to making the lives of athletic directors easier with a fully integrated software platform designed to streamline operations. Bound brings everything together in a single unified schedule and 20 plus powerful tools all in one seamless solution.
Managing athletic events shouldn't feel like chaos. Yet for many athletic directors, it's stressful. Sticky notes all over your desk, endless phone calls, and last-minute changes. But what if it didn't have to be that way? Welcome to Bound. Bound is the all-in-one platform that simplifies athletic management. With 20 powerful tools in one place, you can organize schedules, manage rosters, handle ticketing, track facility use, and much more, all from one seamless dashboard. With Bound, you only need to do the work once. Add or modify an event, and notifications instantly update your teams, event staff, and fans. Schedule games, assign officials, arrange transportation, and send updates in real time. Streamline your athletic department. High school athletics are the heart of every community, and Bound ensures fans stay connected with a customized app and website catered to your school. From schedules and scores to rosters and registrations, everything your community needs is right at their fingertips. And for athletic directors, real-time insights and data make it easy to stay informed. Bound isn't just a software, it's a partner trusted by schools across the country. As the official scheduling partner of the NIAAA, Bound helps you spend less time on paperwork and more time supporting your team. Here's what our users are saying. It's time to update your athletic department. Bound helps you simplify, streamline, and succeed. Ready to join the Bound team? Visit lets.gobound.com or scan the QR code to learn more. Simplify, streamline, and succeed with Bound.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here, and we're gonna kick off this conversation with a little bit of data. I always like a little bit of data. So, data shows that over 70% of our high school coaches are now sourced from outside the teaching staff. So this is necessitating intentional efforts by our athletic ministers to build and maintain the department culture. So with that being said, traditionally coaches have also, often been full-time educators within the school, fostering that strong community bond. With many coaches now coming from outside of the school system, how are you working now to maintain and build that cohesive athletic department within your schools? And Dr. LaPointe, let's just start with you and get your perspective on that, because it's just so different now than when I first started in 1997. Every single coach was in the building.
Yeah, that's a challenge that I don't know any ADs who aren't facing that exact challenge, right? The majority of your campuses could be off-campus coaches. That's what we call them here in Florida anyway. So I think you have to get creative. I mean, communication is obviously key. One of the things that I did, and all my stars aligned for me to be able to do this. I don't think that this is something that every place can do, but I put together an in-service workshop where all of my coaches had to attend this. I turned it into our, fall meeting. And I put everybody on a bus and we had a meeting and I took them off campus and we went to a high ropes course. Okay. And it was one of the best things that I've ever done for that staff, because any little problems of they're 5 minutes over gym time and now I'm getting the phone calls almost disappeared. They were on, teams, they were on peanut butter and jelly all day for, our ropes course. And years later, I heard people being like, well, you're a jelly. You would never do that. If a kid tried to say, my coaches, I can't try out for my track coaches, I can't try out for the basketball team. All of that stuff kind of went away. And it was something that was, because all of my coaches talked to me, right? I knew they were all really good people and they were all advocates for their program, but they didn't necessarily know that about each other because they weren't talking to each other on campus every day. So doing something a little bit outside of the box, I'm not saying that solution is going to work everywhere, but I do think that thinking about it differently, how can you get your coaches to talk more in an environment when they're not naturally talking more, is really the key there. So I did a high ropes course. They wanted it like this every year. The next year we did paintball. I don't recommend that because they all shot me. It hurt. So, but every year we did something different, as that was fun, so they could bond, and we had some lunch, and it was supposed to be a different way, and it worked better than I really hoped that it would. So I just really kind of, I guess, challenge people to think about your situation. What does your budget look like? What kind of support do you have from your administration? What can you do to get your coaches in the same room talking about something fun, not necessarily gym time, right? So all of those other little problems that you're trying to solve will follow as soon as they're talking about stuff. And they realize that they're the same, right? They're all good people. They all have the same goal of having their program be successful. So that is just one way that I've gone around that, but I think there's a lot of different ways. can focus
Yes,
on
thank
that.
you. That's such a great perspective. Mr. Nance, how about you?
A lot of the same things. I would say just looking at our winter, my varsity or high school sports, about 1/3 of our basketball coaches right now are out of the building. We call them adjunct.
Yep.
They're adjunct coaches, mostly at the sub-varsity level.
Sure.
I think part of the problem that we've seen is historically in schools, you were a coach, teacher, then you went to administration, maybe assistant principal, and moved up, right? That's the old way. That doesn't happen a whole lot anymore.
Yeah.
And so the building admin who's not been through the coaching cycle doesn't always remember to look for coaches in the building. And that provides and I get it that you've got to look at their side too. They get graded on a report card and what the state wants and all that. But you got to have coaches in the building to keep that culture, to provide that culture. It helps with discipline. It helps with all the different parts of the building. That's been a struggle for us to find that. It's also a struggle, as you mentioned, some of the fact that, the decline in maybe education, graduation, the people who want to get into education. There's fewer candidates out there, and they don't necessarily want to help run a track meet or assist in some other sport. They're in their silo. They want to do their thing, then they want to go home. And so I think it's incredibly important that the athletic director and their on-staff coaches welcome in these adjunct coaches and community coaches, walk-on coaches, volunteer coaches, whatever you call them, that they welcome them in and get them ingrained into school culture too. Not just the athletic culture, but school, what it's like to be at a school, what it's like for those people to have to go through working first shift as an educator and second shift as a coach, right? They need to do that. And I recently had one of my coaches say, I feel like an outsider. And part of the outsider part of that was the coaches on staff had really not invested in him. He's a really, really good coach. And I think part of it is some of the on-staff coaches might have been intimidated by him or jealous of him because of how good he was. And he was coming in and he has a charisma about him that the kids really liked. And instead of these younger coaches accepting him and learning from him, they kind of shunned him. And we can't afford to send away good people.
That's such a great perspective, Daryl. Just and how important that goes back to Danielle, what you talked about, just the importance of them being together and having that time together so that they can understand that they're sharing the same frustrations. They might be dealing with the same issues and they might be able to help each other.
Mhm.
It's crazy, right? Crazy concept that we get with like-minded people and go out and try to get better and learn from each other. Awesome. Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, this has really kind of become a new problem for us. I mean, really in the last 5 years since I've been here of having, we were pretty much probably 70 to 80% on staff coaches, but now we're completely reversed, like you said. So it's been a big challenge for me, someone who has been here the whole time, coached multiple sports and did that. But what I've tried to do, just recently trying to do it, I live by the rule. Try to text all my coaches, especially in season, at least once a week to have that dialogue, communication. They get a phone call from me every 2 weeks at least. And then within 3, I'm having some sort of face-to-face, whether we go out and have lunch, which I do with a lot of my off staff that are business guys in the community that do stuff, or stop in at practice, just kind of touch base to see how things were going with them. So that face-to-face communication as well. Because we realize this is a problem we are addressing. We're going to have our first retreat, as you guys were saying, coming up this fall. We have the need of getting everybody in the building, doing something fun. We do that for our teachers. So it's, it's time to move it over just because of the need. And like you said, hopefully getting them together and when they're fighting over gym time or whatever they're doing right now they develop a little bit of stuff and mutual respect all the way across. So, it's not going to change. I don't see anything. We were like, no, we're going to get it back the other way. And we're not. I think we've decided in here, you're just not going to be able to bring in the on staff one, because being a private school, we already ask our teachers to do a lot as everybody does. So trying to get them, and then we just keep adding sports as everybody else is doing with that too. So trying to neutralize that. So we've been fortunate, starting to get a lot of alums showing interest and wanting to come back and coach here. So hopefully this new wave will but I think the biggest thing with it is communication. And then that just having that connection with them. I'm lucky enough. I've been here long enough that a lot of these kids that are coming back or whatever, I know I've either coached them or had them in the building, so they feel comfortable with me, and that's been a pretty good transition so far.
So Jeff, just a follow-up question on that. So you feel like the impact of you being there for so long has helped you, attract those young people back to work for the school because you've had that relationship built with them, as a coach and as a teacher?
Yeah, 100%. Because when I first started coaching, I really, and it was me getting out of my baseball was my thing, and wanted to get, I was always instilled in me to give back, come back and coach one summer, your summer ball team, to do that. So that's how I kind of started with the coaching end. And then as I started, my American Legion baseball was one of my first coaching gigs, and I'd always tell the guys that I coached, hey, come back 1 year and help me. Like while you're in college, before you have a family, come back and give. Somebody coach for you, so give it back. So that's kind of what I've instilled in my high school sports up here. Hey, if you get an opportunity, whether it's here for us or at another school when you go away, if you get a chance, go give back 1 year and do it, and you'll get something back out, get a reward back out of it. So I've been leaning on a lot of ones that come back, especially ones that have the time or the opportunity to come back here and coach and give back, and a lot of them have hung on. They do it 1 or 2 years, and you're going to turn into 5 or 6 out of them. So
Yeah.
especially if you can catch them before they start the families and get into real deep into their career.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Newberry.
One thing,
Oh,
one,
yeah,
I,
sorry.
one thing that
Yeah.
Jeff just said that I wanted to ask, and as he's seen that like recent switch is, I feel like I noticed a difference too of like the knowledge base that my off-campus coaches had, not in the sport in particular, but just in like normal education stuff that I kind of expect a teacher to know. I found myself having to be very thoughtful and making sure they understood this is what in a school, this is how we operate. This is normal. We wait for kids to get picked up. We don't take our shirts off during practice. Like little stuff that I never thought I'd have to say, I found having to correct, and I quickly had to check myself as an AD and be like, okay, what can I do to help my off-campus coaches understand how we behave when we're on campus? Because we're a school, right? We're held to a different standard. Has anybody else felt that way as well? As you're smiling, I feel like perhaps you have. Okay.
Daniel, I think you said exactly what I was about to say. I find myself, especially the last 5 years or so, stop using the word sport and start really purposely inserting education-based athletics. And I think it's important. Daryl, you mentioned, being an educator first and the coach second. I have to say, man, you're an educator at all times, and you just do it through coaching. So that transition of out of the building coaches happened for us years ago. So I think where I am now, yeah, definitely the vast majority of my coaches are lay coaches who are not in the building. So I'm very purposeful in coaches meetings to speak to coaches about, hitting those teachable moments and making sure that we focus on the education portion of coaching at all points. So, and you know what, I think it's funny. I had this conversation down in Austin with somebody. There's pros and cons. I mean, the knife cuts both ways. There's some significant benefits from having people who are outside. Sometimes having that outside perspective is really what the kids are gravitating to. They're spending 6-7 hours in the classroom with people who are pounding learn in a very didactic way. And sometimes these lay coaches can kind of, as my grandfather would say, put it where the goats can get it, and they make it very simple for them to pick it up. So I don't know. I see the benefit in both, both sides of that argument. But just that one piece again, though, when you have someone who might be, this is say a mechanic, but he is one heck of a basketball coach. You embrace that part of it, but you also need to make sure that you are, training that coach to, hey, we can't miss these key pivotal moments to teach our kids things outside the lines as well as inside the lines.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Don, so what are you doing right now to kind of to fill that gap? And you said that, and I think that was so important. What you said is just that intentionality, and you said use that intentionality. Like I'm referring it to as education-based athletics. So, what are some other things that you are intentionally doing to kind of develop that culture? Knowing, grabbing from what Jeff and Daryl and Dr. Lapointe have all kind of discussed is like, how are you bringing that all together so that you're developing that culture? Because I feel like since we're so scattered, I kind of felt like when I first started coaching, it just happened organically because they were in the hallways together. They were in the teacher, they had lunch together. That doesn't happen now as much. So how are we as ADs intentionally bringing those people together so that we can develop that culture, build that trust? And I love this quote from Arthur Ashe. He goes, trust can only be developed over the passage of time. So I think that time together is so important. How are you doing that within your school right now, Don?
You know what, you try to create balance. I don't exactly know why some of our, we ask our teachers to do a lot, and they remind us that they are asked to do a lot. So I think that could be part of the reason why we're not getting traditional teachers to come in and do what they've done in the past. But as far as an athletic administrator, it's all the time. Like I'm so intentional. I speak to my wife. When I started my career, you asked me what I do. Hey, I do athletics or I do sports. Rarely do you hear me even say that anymore. And it's intentional. I mean, it's everything that I'm about is just the education part. Now, when you get coaches, sometimes they're focused on the win, and I think we just have to drill that point home. I don't think that there's some panacea, some secret fix. We are the center spoke. Our job, what we do as athletic administrators, we're the center spoke to our programs. But so to answer your question, I guess what I would probably say is there has to be one weave that goes through all of your programs. So, I can say, this is how basketball looks, or this is how soccer looks, or this is how football looks. But there's a thread that is woven through all of those programs, and that comes from this office. It comes from me. It comes from the people who have their hands on all of these programs, and we're very intentional about that. That there has to be some symbol of congruence that you'll see in the program. I know that this sport is going to look different than that sport. I know that this set of coaches, they might have 5 lay coaches and 2 coaches that are in the building in this one, but we need to make sure that at least that thought of education-based athletics shows, even when you're comparing it against a program that is just full of teachers who teach the sport, and that comes from us. It comes from what it is that we do, and it only happens if we're intentional. So if this transition is happening, that you're going to get coaches who might be architects or engineers, and they're coming in, and God bless them for what it is that they're doing. But we need to make sure that we, place our stamp on it and weave that thread through all of those programs.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Brian, bring us home now on our first inaugural question here.
It was a bad idea to leave me to last, but actually it was good for me because I get to hear, and that just gets everything, stirring up again, but the first thing I want to say about this, and I'm pretty traditional, I grew up and played sports for teachers, coaches, and that's what I did when I first started doing it. And so I never wanted to give up on that idea. There's so much value to teachers. There's just so many things that they do better. I could take a 5th grade teacher and go put him or her in a sport they don't even know anything about, and I promise you they're going to be okay. Like I guarantee it. So, and for me, smaller district too, but don't keep trying to get those kids. Know what's open first. Know what's coming open. I told all my coaches, if you're thinking you might be not coming back, I hate surprises. Let's talk about it. I might want to try and keep you. First of all, I want an opportunity to recruit you back, but at the same time, if you know retirement's coming up and you can, start recruiting people, go out and look. The other thing that was important was relationships with my administrators in our buildings. So with our elementaries, with our middle school, and within the high school. I went to our superintendent and I asked very specifically, can we hire coaches? I understand it can strain those school buildings, but can you help me? It's so important to the greater good of a school district. A superintendent truly cares about that last part. Elementary teacher, I'm worried about principal, I'm worried about my building. So, having those relationships and keeping them very positive and showing, we'd send our football guys over to the elementary every Friday to high five kids when they're coming in. We'd go walk the hallways before we'd go to state track. We tried to do all those things to show them this is very important, so don't keep trying to get teachers that are coaches. But what did I do then outside of that? A couple different things. I onboarded differently for non-staff. And when we onboarded, Danielle said it, and I had to laugh because I can't tell you how many times I had to have that conversation with a non-teacher. We don't leave kids standing in the hallway and just leaving. Like, this isn't AAU practice anymore. And actually, it's probably not okay there either. But, we're bound by law to that child until their parent comes and picks them up. So, our onboarding, I had a checklist for non-staff, non-certified staff. And I had a checklist. I went through it. It even went through like how to enter buildings with a key card. Things that teachers just inherently know how to do. And so onboarding was different. I had gender meetings once a year, gender sport meetings. So all my girls coaches, you're in a room, and those were some of the hardest meetings I've ever had to have. There was a lot of feelings that would come out of some of those. There's a lot of it. They're sharing kids. Again, smaller district. We had about 450 kids in our high school. They're sharing kids. We have to share kids. How do we do it? What can you give up so that they're a little more successful and vice versa? And then we had seasonal meetings for all of our coaches. So boys and girls, seasonal, basketball, wrestling, cheer right now. We do book studies every Friday. And I tell you, that probably was the number. I didn't have the money that Dr. LaPointe had to go take my staff on some fancy airplane. I don't know, whatever. But we did have Friday morning book studies, and man, that was powerful. You had to keep the books simple, pretty standard point driven. John Gordon books were great there, those types of things. But the discussion between staff coaches, out of staff coaches, they understood who each other were from that. And I didn't force those. They were all voluntary. But I would tell you, I had all of my head coaches were on those book studies if they could, and a lot of assistant coaches. So that was another thing that we tried to do that would be a little bit more intentional.
Yeah, all really, really good topics and things to think about. I think for me, the one thing that, and I tell people this all the time, I feel like the one thing that we did that really established our culture, helped to retain coaches, was have that coaching PD. That I had the ability to facilitate. And I think the one thing that I saw as that matured and continued to get better was that we had our coaches then coaching our coaches. And that to me, I mean, I still get goosebumps when I think about that first year. And I remember the coaches, and Don, you said this, like, it's just one more thing, Scott. We got to go to one more thing. And I remember saying, just give me a chance. Just give me a chance. You trust me enough that we're going to make this intentional enough, and it's going to empower you to be a better coach. Just give me some time and we'll do this. And we had that very first kickoff session, and the coaches came up and they're like, this is going to be amazing. And it's so powerful when we get our coaches together. And Danielle, you like having fun, such a great point. You know, whether it's we get them together for a meal, we have their families all come together, or we have the ability to have them for PD. One of the most powerful things I ever did as an athletic director was get our coaches and facilitate some sort of professional development. And Don, you made a great point too. Outside of the X's and O's, it was about how we can become better leaders for our kids, for our coaches, for our community. And it was beyond the trophies. And I know that all of us love that. I mean, we're all former coaches. We love the win. It is so amazing. And you said this too, Jeff. It's about using this platform of high school sports to teach these kids life lessons that are going to carry them far beyond their years as an athlete. And it's going to be, you know, I love the opportunity as a coach. And I'd still do, I feel as ADs, we're still coaches. We're coaching coaches. You know, we have the ability to impact the lives of so many kids, but we are taking, and I love this definition, the initial definition of a coach is a covered wagon or a covered, you know, vessel that's going to bring somebody of importance from where they are to where they need to go. And I think that we do that every day as athletic directors. And I think for anybody listening, get your coaches together, do some PD together. So important. I think it's maybe the most impactful thing you can do as an athletic director. So thank you for everybody sharing that. And that we'll get on to our next topic. And had so many great talking points. But here's just a stat to kind of spark the conversation a little bit. And I know Daryl has been really involved with this with the NIAAA. So I know this will be something that he'll be passionate about. But strategic planning has shown in research to increase efficiency and alignment with institutional goals with a 25% increase. And that's improved staff satisfaction after adopting a strategic planning process. So, and I guess I go back to, in light of all the increased scrutiny that surrounds high school athletics, you know, how can strategic planning, you know, contribute to the growth and success of your athletic department? Like, just for example, studies show that strategic planning in athletic departments leads to that improved satisfaction and improved overall operational clarity. So how can, now we've got this NIAAA quality program assessment, which I feel is amazing. You know, Don Bales and you know, now the late Dr. Olson had a lot to do with that. So how can that strategic planning really help you grow for success? And within your athletic department, how are you trying to get there? How are you trying to implement a plan that's going to benefit your athletic department? And Don, let's start with you on this one.
Absolutely. You know, when I think about the strategic plan, it kind of brings me to this place of coming out of COVID. And I pay attention. I'm watching school districts who went into the pandemic and said, man, how are we going to figure this thing out? Where's the money coming from? To now they have a great deal of money and they're trying to spend it. And then now they're out of it and they're like, well, we don't know what's going on. The money is gone. How are we going to figure this out? So it has us in a place where we kind of have to move succinctly and intentionally. So when I think of strategic plans, it's literally carving out your idea of what your program is going to be, who's on the steering wheel, where are we going, how are we getting there, and how much money is it going to cost? Because it's right now, I don't know about you, but it's tight. The days of saying, hey, we're going to make sure you have this program, and you just do what you want to do with it. That's not happening here. We don't have a open checkbook. So I am intentionally and very, very strategic about what it is that I need to do and what my telos or my end game is. So this plan, when we talk about the QPA and going in that direction, Scott, we've had, tons of conversations about, the direction of athletic directors and just athletic administration, and how we can kind of enlarge the territory and really get school districts on point to say, we need to really drive this car to where it needs to go. And I've paid more attention to my strategic plan probably since we've got out of COVID than I looked at it before and said, this is something that we do, but I don't know. We're in a different day now. I don't know. I'll volley that back.
Daryl, I'd love to get your perspective on this, because you've been, really involved with the QPA, and you've seen the growth over the last few years. So why don't you give us your perspective on that?
Well, Scott, you mentioned you were a history teacher. I'm an old history teacher too. In 2009, I was president-elect for the NIAAA, and I presented the official QPA to the board. And because Dr. John Olson, the late Dr. John, shout out to him and his life and his legacy of leadership for all he's done. Because Dr. Olson had wrote it, I just assumed it would be easily adopted and passed by the board. And they had a whole bunch of questions, and I was not prepared for. So we actually came back and had to do some rewrite on it that Dr. Olson was, willing to do. And so it went into effect really. And that's back in the days when you had like gold, silver, and bronze, not like it is now.
I remember.
And
Yeah, I
you had to
remember
print
that.
in the 3-ring binder with 1,000 pages. It was, it was hard. So my history with it is from that very beginning to I have 12 of my schools in the district QPA cohort right now. And really the genesis for us to do this was a couple of years ago. I asked a question. We were looking at facilities development in our district and some things we wanted to do along with our long range planning. And I asked my ADs to respond to, what do you need the most? What's going to help you be competitive? What's the next thing you need? And the answer I got back was, we need more storage. Could you give me an outdoor storage building? And I'm like, we are not visioning out what we can buy a storage room. That's not a problem. I need something. And we just didn't have that vision at the time. So we started working towards the QPA. And how I presented it to my superintendent, who's the best, right? Phenomenal. But I explained to him what it was. And when he finally got down into the weeds with me, really looking into it, he goes, so wait a minute, this is like your own strategic plan, school by school, but top to bottom through the district. And I said, yes, sir. And he's like, enough so that if you left, or an AD at a building left and a new AD came in, they could open this thing up and there it is, step by step by step. I said, yes, sir. He goes, how much money do you need to do it?
Yep.
Right. So that's kind of where we are. And I knew we had the documents. I knew we had the handbook. I knew we were going to be okay. I knew we were going to be okay. Air quotes, right? We turned in the first month, and our evaluator said, yeah, that's okay, but where's this, and this? And what we learned very quickly was, while we thought we had it, we did have it, we did not show it in action. We didn't have another piece, or we hadn't branded it effectively. And the last 4 months, we have seen we're through 4 components. We're into component 5 right now. The way that our ADs have responded with the proof, if you will, right? And each time we have to say, okay, but where did you actually put it? And it's all in their heads. It's all in an email. It's all in they have to put it down in writing. We have to show the action steps. And that has been phenomenal growth for each of my ADs. And I mean, look, nothing's without pain, right? There's a little bit of whining that goes on, but I thought no, put it in writing, do the document the way it is, research back and find this piece of evidence, right? And now it's like they're hungry to get to they're ready to get to next month. And so we're really excited about what that's going to do for, building the strategic planning forward. Like, I think now if I ask them the same question, I wouldn't hear anything about storage. I would hear a lot more about future growth of student athletes and future PDs for coaches, and where can we make the most, how can we use technology more effectively to grow our space and use the information that we have to monetize ourselves to make up for the loss of revenue that we have because people don't come to games as much anymore, or because we don't get any media coverage and people don't know there's a whole lot of things they can do through that QPA to grow their own program and their own professionalism.
Yeah, you brought that back. You know what? I forgot that we had the gold, silver, and bronze until you said that. Because when I first did it, I'm like, well, I don't want no bronze or silver. I want gold.
That's right.
Oh, I love it. But thank you for sharing that, Daryl. That's really good. And I love the fact that both Don is going through it and you're going through it as a district right now too. So to get your perspective on that's just amazing.
I'll say one other thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just to piggyback off of what Mr. Nance said, one of the amazing things about this program is we find ourselves as athletic administrators like really being on autopilot. Every fall we do this, and in the winter we do this, in the spring we do this, and I tell you, I've had 5-6 years go by, and it's like, yo, where did the time go? Like it's just repetitive. So to really think about what it is that you're doing and questioning yourself, is this even effective? Do I need to divert my time and spend more time doing this? I mean, that's a very strategic process. So, I mean, we've spoken. I honestly think that every athletic administrator, this needs to be, if we need to move this career path forward, this has to be a part that every athletic administrator goes through. There has to be a cycle where you think about what it is that you're doing, and it really can craft your strategic plan for you. So I just want to say that before you go out, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate the work that you guys did and kind of engineering this thing.
Yeah, and I would say too, and you made a great point, Don, the amount of credibility that comes to an AD when they go through that process and they go present that to their board, I think they see the AD in a different light. I really do. Because we all know, most people in town like, oh, AD, that's an easy job. You just get to watch sports all day. They do not know what you do. And I think the QPA shines a little bit of light on the complexity of the role of the athletic administrator. And I always say, and I'm going to be preaching to the choir here, but running an athletic department is running a school within a school. Your coaches are your teachers, but you don't have guidance counselors. You don't have custodians. You don't have typically don't have assistant principals, assistant ADs. And Dr. LaPointe, she does this presentation on the Army of One or the Department of One. And a lot of our ADs are doing that. They are doing it all by themselves. And I don't know how they do it, but they get it done because they care about their kids and they care about their communities. So, Jeff, let's jump over to you.
Yeah, I will. I mean, great stuff. But we we're a self-funded. We're really unique in the fact that every penny we spend as an athletic department, we have to raise. So not only am I scheduling and doing the normal AD stuff, so we have to be very strategic with how we spend, and we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the year with coaches, and it's what will make you better with coaches, and really spending the minimal amount that we can. And then the facilities, now we're talking about big fundraisers if we're trying to keep up with that. So we do a tremendous job, and we call it a booster club, but it's not in the sense that most people think as a booster club. It's really just, it's our athletic department. But I go out and get, business guys that I respect, and that's kind of who I put on my board that help me run that, just with their intelligence and things within the community. So I spend a lot of time early, and we try to keep up, and prioritize what we need to do with coaches, and that's where that communication comes in there. And we talked, school of 500 here, and one of the things we have an indoor hitting facility because I dreamed it. 10, 15 years ago, I dreamed of, because we were hitting in the gym while basketball practice was going on. And I know the basketball coach was awesome, but I knew it aggravated him. So got people together and let's figure this out. And, so I tell them like you got to dream big, and then you got to have the plan, of how to do that and envision and benefit everybody. And it's also dubbed as our golf team uses it in the winter too, to come in and get some swings in. So it's just, how can it benefit everybody? So it's I don't know, we have anything formal. I'm interested this QPA you guys are talking about, because I'm not real familiar with it, but we have to be very strategic in what we do with our stuff.
Well, if you need anything, Jeff, you can definitely reach out to myself, or Don's actually going through right now, or Daryl, who's been, in it since the beginning. So you got 3 pretty darn good resources here. Dr. Lapointe, let's get your perspective on this. Super excited to hear about your perspective of strategic planning within your athletic department.
So I think the strategic plans look different for everybody based on their situation, how their school structure is, their district structure, what that means. Or is it a safety plan? Is it towards success? Is it towards education? There's a lot of different ways to look at strategic planning. And I do think I was slightly scarred once, and it's going to come out right here, just giving you guys a heads up, that I had this one time.
AD being scarred, I don't believe it.
Still cuts me deep. I was at my first school as an AD yet, and I had this beautiful strategic plan. I felt like we were finally at a spot where I could start to implement and make some of these real changes. And I was so excited about it. And it was beautiful, and it was documented. As Daryl, said, it was in a binder, and here we go. And my principal got moved to a different high school, and I had a new principal come in who was a middle school principal prior, elementary before that, didn't have any high school experience, didn't understand why we practice sports every day. Just so you guys had some sort of gauge of where I was at. And I felt like my entire plan that I had just went out the window. And that was devastating. And I didn't have a good network at that time to really, like you guys, to talk and figure out what the next step was. So what I bring from that is have your plan be flexible. There are going to be wrenches thrown at you. Not all the time. Sometimes it's going to work out great and you can do it. But that doesn't mean your plan needs to go away. Maybe you need to focus on one area. Maybe it needs to be revised a little bit. Maybe, some of the things take a little bit of a backseat and some things move forward. But don't let that be such a big roadblock that it stops all the good you still can do. Strategic planning is not a one and done type of process. It takes months. It takes years to really have that impact, and there's going to be some setbacks, and don't get discouraged, because sometimes those setbacks are completely out of your control. So I think it's just a good thing to know that it happened to me. It could happen to somebody else. I know we like to talk about all the good stuff all the time, but that hurt. It still hurts. I just think that that's a good thing that we need to talk about, is like things can change. Things are going to change. There's going to be an evolution, and sometimes it's not always going to be positive, but don't give up on it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Brian.
Yeah, no, super jealous to hear the formal process that some of you have taken. I just hearing that and thinking, man, all the things. But as I'm listening to that though, and Scott, you're gonna like roll your eyes through the back of your head here because he's heard me say this many times. I thought it was so very important because, like Danielle said, we were all different. And I just thought it was so very important to understand who we were first. And we had plans, but I based all of those from our kind of our core value package that we created, and we surveyed. And it wasn't just Brian Peterson, this is who we are, because I promise you that would have been super flawed. But it was, we surveyed alumni, we surveyed staff, we surveyed administrators. We asked anybody in our communities to tell us, what do we do well? What are we known for? What do you like about what we're currently doing in our activities department, blah, blah, blah. And then we really formulated that first. And all of our planning came outward from there. So our facility plans came outward from understanding who our community thinks we were. Did I see the importance all the time of what they thought the football field should look like? No. But I had, that's who I work for. Those are the people. And, there's part of me that says I have to keep helping them understand. It should maybe get some renovations here or there, whatever. But I just think having that map first, I guess it would be like taking off from my house and trying to get to Jeff's down in Missouri. I'd have a pretty good idea of how to get there. But it would certainly take longer than it should if I just pulled out Google Maps, and just followed that right along and had an end. Here's where we're going. So that's the way I see that. I just thought it was so very important first for any of our planning that we did internally for spending, for a booster club, for all of it, to understand who we were first, because I didn't want to do any of that without trying to understand this is who our community and our kids and our staff, this is who we think we are. That is who we are then. So we need to follow that path. But super jealous when I hear you talk about, what you guys are able to do now and the changes in that world too. So really cool stuff.
So everybody, thank you so much for being here today. That's our time for today. I have so many more other questions that I'd love to dive into, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But thank you for what you do. We've covered just a few of the major shifts that we've seen in education-based athletics, and how our athletic directors are truly rising to meet these challenges head on. And I just leave you with this. Just remember, your leadership truly sets the foundation for growth and excellence in your programs. And I just want to thank you for what you do. Like, all of our athletic directors out there are doing so many amazing things for kids and for coaches and for their communities. I don't want you to forget that there is a group of ADs out here that are willing to help you in any way that we can. So for anybody listening, thank you for listening. And don't forget, we're here to help. And if you want some more inspiring conversations, reach out to anybody on this panel today, because they are just fantastic athletic administrators, but they are even better people. Until next time, keep driving for change and pursuing greatness.